All right, everybody, welcome to another exciting edition of the program. So, the conference semifinals have wrapped up in both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, and now we're on to the conference finals. So, before we do our previews of the conference finals, let's look back at what happened in the second round of the 2025 NBA playoffs. So, as I alluded to earlier, we had the conference semifinals. Let's start off in the Eastern Conference, where we had the number one seed Cleveland Cavaliers going up against the fourth seeded Indiana Pacers. What a performance by the Indiana Pacers in this series. Indiana would go on to win the series 4-1. And you talk about Tyrese Halliburton, a walking three-pointer. Tyrese Halliburton has been sensational in this playoff run thus far for the Indiana Pacers. But it hasn't just been Tyrese, it's been other stars like Aaron Nesmith, like Miles Turner, like TJ McConnell, like Pascal Siakam, just to name a few. These guys, and also Andrew Nembhard. Andrew Nembhard has knocked down some really big shots, some clutch and key shots during this playoff series. And kudos to Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle, again, in another amazing year for the Indiana Pacers, going back to their second straight Eastern Conference Finals, and certainly the future is bright in the Midwest, specifically in Indianapolis with the Indiana Pacers. And there was a poll, I don't know if you heard about this, but there was a poll given out not too long ago by NBA players that rated Tyrese Halliburton as the most overrated player in the league. No, he's not overrated. He's underrated in my book. I mean, as I stated earlier, since he's arrived with the Pacers, he's been outstanding. Last year, one of the guys responsible for taking the Pacers to the Eastern Conference Finals, and now they're going back for a second straight year. And not just Halliburton, as I stated earlier, like Nembhard and Miles Turner with the sharp shooting and his rebounding and the defense, TJ McConnell, Pascal Siakam, just to name a few. Those guys have really been good for the Pacers. And for the Cleveland Cavaliers, it's going to be another difficult and long off season for them. Donovan Mitchell, we know what Donovan brings to the table. Evan Mobley really stepped up his game this year. He's this year's Defensive Player of the Year. And Jared Allen, again, another solid Jared Allen year for them. Darius Garland battled an injury throughout most of this series, had a sprained toe, was not as effective. We'll see how that goes going forward. But Cleveland, again, Kenny Atkinson's great first season, I should say, as the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, winning the Coach of the Year award. And Cleveland, again, they were the number one seed. But sometimes just because you're the number one seed does not necessarily guarantee you immediate success, especially winning playoff series or even winning championships. But the Indiana Pacers, man, they showed up and showed out in a major way, beating the Cleveland Cavaliers to win the series in 5 games, winning the series 4-1 as the Pacers march to the Eastern Conference Finals for the second year in a row. And let's move over now to the other Eastern Conference semifinal matchup between the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks. So Boston was the number 2 seed. New York was the number 3 seed. And man, when you think New York and Boston, not just two cities that are dynamic in their own right culturally, but their sports, both cities really have treasured histories when it comes to their sports. And Knicks and Celtics, it was definitely something, but it went 6 games, but the New York Knicks hold on to beat the Boston Celtics, in 6 games, winning the series 4-2. Jalen Brunson. I mentioned about New York and its sports and a lot of sports heroes in the New York area with the likes of Willis Reed and Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe and also Eli Manning, Michael Strahan, Derek Jeter, just to name a few. Jalen Brunson is on the verge of becoming one of those great New York sports heroes sooner rather than later. And certainly Jalen Brunson, he's just been rolling in these playoffs so far. And in the series against the Celtics, Jalen has shown up in a major way. Not just with Jalen, but also OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges with the sharp shooting and the defense. Also, Josh Hart has played phenomenal as well. So the Knicks handled their business. Mitchell Robinson, There was a lot of speculation. A lot of New York fans, a lot of NBA fans were questioning his heart and knocking down free throws. But Mitchell, within the last couple of games, played his position, taking care of business on the defense and the rebounding side of things, and was able to help the Knicks beat the Boston Celtics in 6 games, winning the series 4 games to 2. So New York will face the Indiana Pacers in the next round. And what's interesting about this is that this is the Knicks' first Eastern Conference Finals appearance in 25 years. Yes, it's been a long time coming. The last time they were in the Eastern Conference Finals was the year of 2000. And guess who they played? The Indiana Pacers. We'll get more into that in that rivalry and that series in just a little bit. But as far as the Boston Celtics is concerned, Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum, my goodness, man. You talk about Jason Tatum had a game for the ages in game 5. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, game 4. Excuse me. In game 4, Jason Tatum had a game for the ages. However, Jason suffered a terrible injury. It was a non-contact injury. He was going for a loose ball, and if you saw the replay, his right, I believe it was his right Achilles tendon, stretched it, got diving for a loose ball, and then he went down, and I automatically knew what it was. A lot of the announced team, the broadcasting team, was saying, even at the end of the game, head coach Joe Mazzulla was saying it's a lower body injury. I said it can't be a lower body injury. I knew what it was from the jump, just in terms of how he was in pain, and then they had to cart him off the court in a wheelchair, and it was that injury was serious. And we later found out that Tatum he ruptured his Achilles tendon, and the surgery was a success. And now the Celtics next year, Jason Tatum, how long will it be before he returns to full strength? Will he play next season? What about Jaylen Brown? Can Jaylen Brown carry the load for the Celtics whenever Jason Tatum returns? Derek White, Derek will be back. KP, Kristaps Porzingis, his health. He had an illness that he never fully recovered from during the series against the Knicks. We'll see how everything pans out for KP next year. Peyton Pritchard, the 6th man of the year, he'll be back. What about Drew Holiday and Al Horford? The ageless wonders. What's going to happen with them? Because certainly there's going to be a lot of question marks for the Celtics going into next year. And certainly it begins with the Tatum injury, the recovery. How long will, if he doesn't play next year, the recovery going forward, what's going to happen? Can they keep that nucleus around in order to contend for future championships? But right now, the New York Knicks, the Knicks beat the Celtics in 6 games, and the Knicks will take on the Indiana Pacers in this year's Eastern Conference Finals. All right, so that took care of the Eastern Conference. Let's move over now to the Western Conference semifinals matchups. We had the Minnesota Timberwolves, who was the 6th seed, going up against the 7th seed Golden State Warriors. And Minnesota just dominated from start to finish. Minnesota wins the series 4 games to 1, ending the series in 5 games. When you think of the Timberwolves, you think of a future, he's a star and he's a superstar. Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards showed up big time in this series, but it wasn't just Anthony Edwards. It was the contributions of Julius Randle. Julius has really stepped up his game in these NBA playoffs this year. Not just Julius Randle. How about Rudy Gobert? Rudy Gobert, of course, doing his thing, rebounding and doing his thing on the defensive side, blocking shots. But also Rudy has made some contributions getting points in the paint. And how about Jaden McDaniels? You talk about your quintessential small forward, a guy that can get rebounds, play solid defense, but also can stretch the floor with his long-range shooting. Those gentlemen that I've mentioned for the Timberwolves, they were just outstanding in this series for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So Ant-Man and company march on to the Western Conference Finals for the 2nd year in a row. And the Timberwolves, we'll get to the other Western Conference semifinal matchup, but Minnesota, hey, the future is bright for them. As I mentioned earlier, Anthony Edwards, You can't go wrong with Ant-Man. The superstar could be the face of one of the faces of the NBA within the next year or two. And the Timberwolves, they're just clicking on all cylinders right now. And as for the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry suffered a major injury in game one of the series. He suffered a terrible hamstring. I believe, I'm sorry, it wasn't game one. I'm sorry. This was game it was game one of the series. I stand corrected. Yeah, it was in game one of the series. He suffered a terrible hamstring injury that kept him really out of the whole series. And after that, the Warriors had no answers on offense. I mean, Jimmy Butler, Jimmy buckets. He did what he could do, but it just wasn't enough. Draymond Green, they got shots out of him, but it wasn't enough. Buddy Hield, Buddy did what he could do, but man, it just wasn't enough. Golden State out, once Steph Curry went down, they had no answers, and it showed in this series because Minnesota took advantage of the opportunity. Just too much depth, too much offense, too much defense. And can't forget about, as far as Minnesota is concerned, Dante DiVincenzo, also Naz Reid. They were big contributors in this one as well. So as far as Golden State is concerned, Steph recently said that he wants to ride this thing out as long as he can for the Warriors with this current roster that they have, because Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy, they all have 2 more years left on their contracts. So they're going to ride this thing out. And then also, too, you've got guys like Brandon Podziemski. We'll see what holds for them. Will Golden State go younger in this draft? We'll see what happens. But Golden State, they're going to have to prepare sooner rather than later for life without Steph Curry, because, man, life without Steph Curry in that series against the Timberwolves, man, was tough. And it showed, and Minnesota took full advantage of it as the Timberwolves march on to their second straight Western Conference Finals, beating the Golden State Warriors in 5 games. And then we had a thrilling series between the number 1 seed Oklahoma City Thunder going up against the Denver Nuggets. And 2 words that all sports fans love, Game 7. And it went to a Game 7, and the Thunder just dominated in that Game 7 as Oklahoma City would win the series 4-3. So in the end, it came down to home court advantage, not just for the Thunder, but so much depth, right? Chet Holmgren, Lou Dort, both Jalen Williamses, right? Also Isaiah Joe, also Isaiah Hardenstein. You had so many guys, so much depth on that roster. And of course, most likely will be this year's MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Just so good, so explosive. And then also Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace. I mean, Oklahoma City, that depth is really good. Yeah, SGA is SGA. He's the straw that stirs the drink. But man, so much depth, just too talented, not just with the starting lineup, but just coming off the bench and really making big plays from start to finish, especially within the in Game 7. As for the Denver Nuggets, I mean, the Denver Nuggets, they went through a lot of changes right before the playoffs. Michael Malone fired. They bring in the interim head coach, David Adelman, and they make a nice run. They wind up jumping playoff spots. They were originally, I believe, they were a 5th seed or a 6th seed. They wound up moving up to the 4th seed, and the play got better. Nikola Jokic was asked after the game in a post-game press conference. He said in his own words that the Nuggets were not yet there. He felt like they can't win another championship right now because of the roster that they have. And, Denver in the offseason looks like they're going to have to really work on their bench. Nikola, best player in the world right now. Jamal Murray, when he's healthy, he's explosive. Christian Brown is an exciting player. Russell Westbrook, will they bring him back? Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, are they the guys that can kind of help out with the bench and maybe get things going in terms of, in the event if Murray Murray's hurt or if Jokic is unavailable? I mean, they've got to build around Nikola. Denver, the championship window is still open for them, but they got to build around the big man. And, when you build around the big man and you've got Murray and, you know, everything should fall into place for the Nuggets. MPJ, Michael Porter Jr., injuries, that shoulder injury really got to him, especially in this series against OKC. He was in and out of the mix, had up and down games. We'll see what the future holds for him. But I mean, Denver is going to be a long off season for them. But right now, it's about the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Thunder handled their business in 7 games, beating the Denver Nuggets, moving on to the Western Conference Finals. Now it's time to preview the conference finals. So let's start off with the Eastern Conference Finals. We have the Indiana Pacers going up against the New York Knicks. So when you think of the Pacers and the Knicks rivalry, this is really a rivalry renewed going back to the 90s. You think of names like Reggie Miller, Spike Lee. Reggie Miller, hey, you remember that game, right? 94, the Eastern Conference Finals. Reggie did his thing, looked at Spike Lee, hey, made the most out of it, knocked down threes, couldn't be touched. This is a rivalry renewed. So when you think of Pacers Knicks, Reggie Miller, Spike Lee, also Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley, John Starks, also Rick Smits, Detlef Schrempf, just to name a few. And these two teams have had some wars. These two teams have had some knockdown dragouts, some fights mixed in. It has been hot and heavy. And hey, this is going to be the first Eastern Conference Final matchup between the Pacers and the Knicks since the year 2000, when the Pacers wind up winning in 6 games. So the playoff history is the first time that these two teams met was in the first round in 1993 in the Eastern Conference. Knicks won the series 3-1. They played in the Eastern Conference in the 1994 Eastern Conference Finals. Knicks would win in 7 games. Then in 95, you had the Pacers winning in 7 games in the second round matchup. They met again in the second round in 1998. Pacers would win in 5 games, 4-1. Then in the 99 Eastern Conference Finals, Knicks would win in 6 games. Then they would meet again in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2000. The Pacers would win in 6. And then in 2013, in the second round of the playoffs, Pacers win in 6. And then last year's second round matchup, the Pacers would win in 7 games. So, with that being said, these two teams have been going at each other. Really, you could say since, with the rivalry being intense since 1993. And man, it has been, this has been one heck of a rivalry. And this is a rivalry renewed with names like Tyrese Halliburton, also with names like Andrew Nembhard and Miles Turner, also with Benedict Mathurin, TJ McConnell, Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam. And then, of course, with the Knicks, right? Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, also with Josh Hart, also Mitchell Robinson. You got Karl Anthony Towns. These guys, I mean, hey, this is going to be a series for something else at the Garden, New York City. Man, it's bruh, this is going to be one for the record books, man. And considering what the Pacers have had to go through this year, and consider with the Knicks and what they've had to go through this year, man, it is something else. It's been fun. It has been really fun. I mean, it's one thing when Los Angeles is winning, but with this resurgence of New York basketball, it is fun. It's fun when you see all those fans outside of Madison Square Garden and people in the Garden. It is truly unique. It's dynamite. It's certainly one of a kind, man. And Pacers Knicks, never a dull moment in the rivalry. I don't expect it to be a dull moment when these two teams meet, especially when you have Tyrese Halliburton going up against Jalen Brunson and company. This certainly should be a lot of buzzer beaters. I expect this to go all 7 games. I think this is going to be a fun and a fierce playoff series. All right, so now for a preview of the Western Conference Finals, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder going up against the Minnesota Timberwolves. When I think of this matchup in the Western Conference Finals between the Timberwolves and the Thunder, I automatically think of young stars that are superstars, or should I say, becoming superstars right in front of our very eyes. Anthony Edwards and Shea Gilgis Alexander. Anthony Edwards, aka Ant Man, already a star and could be, if not the face of the NBA, could be one of the faces of the NBA. Anthony Edwards, since he's arrived in the league, has just been phenomenal. Start to finish, not just with his play, but with the swag and the attitude. And Ant-Man has just been on point since he's joined the Minnesota Timberwolves. For Shea Gilgis Alexander, Shea played with the Clippers for a while and had success with them, then was traded to Oklahoma City, and slowly but surely had to find his way. And my goodness, boy, he has been sensational. He has been sensational since he's been with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Last 3 years, he's been an all-star, and also he led the league in scoring this year and has an opportunity to, well, most likely will win the regular season MVP this year. But this is, I won't say a changing of the guard with going from LeBron, Steph, and Kevin Durant, but this could be the tide could turn from LeBron, Steph, and KD to Ant-Man, SGA, Luka, and company with this next revival or next renaissance of the NBA. But it's going to center around really the two gentlemen that are stars and will take the NBA to another a new level of heights whenever the transition is in full swing. But Anthony Edwards, Shea Gilgis Alexander, both great for both of their teams. But not just those two gentlemen, but for Minnesota, you've got an experienced veteran with Mike Conley. You've also got Dante DiVincenzo in his first year with the Timberwolves, played with the Knicks for several seasons, was traded in this past offseason, has been productive for the Timberwolves. Also, you've got a Rudy Gobert bringing the defense and the rebounding. Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, those two gentlemen can shoot like nobody's business. That range is so on point. And for the Thunder, you talk about depth. You talk about Lou Dort. You talk about Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein, also Alex Caruso, who is just he's an epitome of being a hustler. I mean, hustling on the court, diving for loose balls, getting rebounds and whatnot. Just phenomenal. Also, Isaiah Joe, Cason Wallace. You got Aaron Wiggins. Also, you got both of the Jalen Williamses on the team. I mean, OKC is just loaded with depth. Minnesota's got a lot of depth on their team, but Oklahoma City has a lot of depth on their team, and this should be fun. This is going to be an exciting one. I think the Knicks and the Pacers is going to go 7 games. I know for sure that the Timberwolves and the Thunder will go 7 games as well. This is going to be a fun one. Of course, Anthony and Shea are going to lead the way, but it's also going to be the supporting cast of both teams that are really going to have something to say in this series. I think this is going to be fun. It's going to be outstanding, and boy, definitely it's going to be a series for the ages. And what's going to be so cool about this, I think we're going to see a lot of this for the next decade and a half between Anthony Edwards, Shea Gilgis Alexander, and especially with these two teams with Minnesota and Oklahoma City. All right, before we get on out of here, I just want to give you some more news in regards to the 2024-2025 NBA award winners. Defensive Player of the Year belongs to Evan Mobley from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Rookie of the Year belongs to Stephon Castle from the San Antonio Spurs. The Sixth Man of the Year award goes to Peyton Pritchard from the Boston Celtics. Most Improved Player goes to Dyson Daniels from the Atlanta Hawks. Clutch Player of the Year award goes to Jalen Brunson from the New York Knicks. Coach of the Year award belongs to Kenny Atkinson from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Sam Presti from the Oklahoma City Thunder wins Executive of the Year. Drew Holiday from the Boston Celtics wins the NBA Sportsmanship Award. Steph Curry from the Golden State Warriors wins the Twyman Stokes Teammate of the Year award. Drew Holiday picks up another award. He wins the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Social Justice Champion Award. And Draymond Green from the Golden State Warriors wins the NBA Hustle Award. And also, to end this show, if you've been living under a rock, I'm sure you know that the NBA will return to NBC starting next year, and the network made an announcement in that Michael Jordan will be hired as a special contributor to the NBA on NBC. The network has not made any more details about what his role will be in detail, but however, Michael Jordan, of course, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, certainly somebody that was part of helping the NBA grow and making it a worldwide phenomenon. Of course, Mike with the shoes and the clothing and whatnot. I mean, Michael Jordan is a brand within itself. So Michael Jordan will join the NBA on NBC starting next year as a special contributor for their NBA coverage. And not just with Michael joining the NBA on NBC, but also Carmelo Anthony and Vince Carter, they will join NBC as the studio analysts. And also being hired, of course, for the NBA on NBC will be Jamal Crawford and Reggie Miller. They will serve as analysts for the network's NBA coverage. And Noah Eagle, the son of Iron Eagle, will be the network's number 2 play-by-play announcer. And Mike Tirico, of course, a talented, versatile journalist in his own right. He's broadcasted a lot of big sporting events. He will be the number 1 play-by-play announcer for NBC's coverage when the NBA returns to the network next year. So again, thank you so much once again for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the program. Till next time, everybody, so long and take care. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel. Remember to click like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching.